Hey guys, Ridiculous Badger coming at you from Planet 545. Let's talk about strengthening the weaken effect. We've gotten conflicting information from the developers as to what exactly the strengthening the weaken effect does. However, we know that there are 4 buffs/debuffs, and they are increased accuracy for you, decreased accuracy for the enemy, increased damage for you, decreased damage for the enemy. Now, for base weaken effect, the damage bonus is 20%, although the developers have told us 20%, 25%, and 30%. For the accuracy bonus, base weaken effect against the enemy will give you an additional 20% as well. And once again, we've been told 20%, 25%, and 30%. This is just based off of research of the theory crafters, and this is what it seems like, but who knows? The enemy will get the same debuff in accuracy as your buff is in accuracy, which makes you harder to hit. And the accuracy buff and debuff are applied multiplicatively, so it is something that can, at its max capability, you can basically have an auto hit against the enemy and a never get hit when the enemy attacks you. For damage, if you have your 400% strength and weaken, and we're assuming that the enemy has 0% resistance weaken, the maximum capability is that you could take 0 damage from the enemy. It's complete and total damage mitigation, and this is the attribute that makes strength and weaken effect so amazing. When deployed correctly, a commander with full strength and weaken effect gear can lay waste to dozens of commanders. I've seen it happen in Galactic Battle where it just takes everybody so long to actually change their troop type or deploy enough resistance weaken in order to oust the strength and weaken effect commander. It is something that a guild needs 1 or 2 on the battlefield in order to make an impact. The sources of strength and weaken effect are the Gabriel Hull, which is relatively new, and that has a maximum of 87% at level 20. There's gear pieces. Let's look at some gear pieces. Yeah, what the heck? We'll do that. There's the Rabbit Ear Headband, which scales at 6% per level. And there's the Destruction Weapons, which scale at 3% per level. And finally, there's the Guild Buff, which is relatively new also. Each level is a percent. In general, as we'll find as we get further on into this series, it is necessary to have a complete strength and weaken effect set before deploying it reliably. So you definitely need to aim, at the very least, for above 400% strength and weakened. And in fact, as we'll find out later, it's actually much higher. But it's worthy to note that, because in order to get above that mark, you gotta get your gear up to a very high level. I've got 510 on mine, and there are only 3 pieces of gear for this. So I've got my bunny ears at 35 and my 2 destructions at 30. That costs a ton of melange. IntelliBots will help you, but this is going to cost tens of millions of melange. That is what makes the hull so critical in the strength and weaken effect set.